Roll it. Hey, I'm Kev Mr. Kerr, and welcome to Power Oversteer, my Wheels Motorsport show on this ElusiveKev channel. And in this show, I'm going to talk about wheel motorsport as event, such as in F1 and IndyCar. Those are the two series I plan to cover most in this show, because those are the two series I know the most about, I feel. And I might talk about other series I watch, such as the British Touring Car Championship, World Touring Car Championship, World Rally Championship, NASCAR, DTM, V8 Supercars, GP2, GP3, Formula 3. Any of those I could also add to the mix later down the line. But in this show, we're going to concentrate on F1. We're talking about the Formula 1 2013 season. We're going to preview it. We're going to talk about the calendar, the regulations, the teams, of course, the drivers. But firstly, as I said, we're going to talk about the calendar, and there's been so many changes. Not really. It's going to be 19 races this season, starting in Australia this weekend and then ending at the end of November in Brazil, one of my favourite finales for the Grand Prix calendar. And so there were going to be 20 races, but the new circuit in New Jersey was not prepared. Bernie didn't like it, and so it's been put on hold. And so we don't actually know if it's going to be on next year, but of course might be a Russian Grand Prix in Sochi, and there might be other Grand Prix in Mexico, in Argentina, in South Africa, in the Middle East, in Europe, in space maybe. I don't know if Bernie's planning one, but I think the moon would be a great Grand Prix circuit, and so he might have one there in the future, you never know. So it's going to be 19 races. I said it might have been 20, and there were rumours for a while about who would be on that 20th race. It was going to be Istanbul Park, Turkey. I dropped very recently, and it could have been back, but there was no government funding. It was the French Grand Prix maybe returning to Manicourt. The Portuguese Grand Prix maybe being revived at Portimao, and of course the Red Bull Ring in Austria, owned by Dieter Mateschitz, the part owner of Red Bull, and of course part owner of the Red Bull Racing team, who have dominated championship the past 3 seasons, and they're like the favourite for a while with the former A1 ring, of course, as it was formerly known, or the Österreich ring in its original configuration, and it didn't make it onto the calendar. None of these made it onto the calendar. There was also a Middle East race rumoured for a while, Argentina Grand Prix being revived, and maybe, as I said, the Mexican Grand Prix as well, but none of these have made it on, and so we're stuck with 19 races. And there were 20 last year, but Valencia has been discarded, or more aptly the European Grand Prix name has been discarded, and Valencia's entered into a sharing programme with Catalonia for the Spanish Grand Prix. So it's going to be Catalonia, Valencia, Catalonia, Valencia, Catalonia, Valencia for the next few years, just like the German Grand Prix is Hockenheim, Nürburgring, Hockenheim, Nürburgring, Hockenheim, Nürburgring. And so they're going to be into that sharing agreement for the next few years, just like the German Grand Prix. But there might be new races coming soon, as I talked about. Russia, South Africa maybe has been even rumoured. There was even a London Grand Prix rumoured through the Olympic Park, and it looks like the new Formula E series has taken up that mantle, and so it's going to have a London street race. And there also was a Rome Grand Prix rumoured in 2010 for this year, but that's disappeared, much like most of Bernie's circuit calendar ideas. And so we talked about the calendar, let's talk about the regulations coming up for this year. And so the regulations, and there haven't been much changes on the sporting or technical front, but let's talk about the technical changes first. There's going to be a modesty panel, a vanity panel, a panel to put on front of your step nose at the front of the car, just to make them look a bit aesthetically pleasing. Or maybe if the airflow in the wind tunnel, the numbers are good, we're going to put a nice vanity panel over the top. Only Lotus and Catrin, I believe, are the cars that have not covered up the front of their nose. Teams such as Salvo have got slots on their front nose, or Red Bull, they've got a duct under that front nose, so to concentrate on the air under that front nose, trying to work that to the back of the car, back to the diffuser, and it's all about getting air to the back of the car, all about the airflow in Formula 1. We've also got heavier tyres this year, so the minimum rating of the car has been lifted to 642 kilograms, and these heavier tyres, Pirelli, they're promising, oh, they're going to dig even harder, even faster, shorter, stronger. Well, they're going to dig even more. And then, as I said, a bit heavier. The contact patch onto the road is a bit wider. There's a bit more tyre on the road, and so we might see some faster at times, and maybe. But as I said, these tyres dig faster, so you might even see slower at times as a consequence. But that's what the Ferrari wanted. They wanted to keep the teams on their toes, and so it looks like Pirelli have done their job, at least in testing. Of course, we're going to find out on the real thing this weekend. On the technical front as well, there's more stringent front wing tests. The FIA, they don't want FlexiGate again from the past couple of years, and so the allowance for the front wings is even narrower, with only 10 millimeters allowed under 100 kilogram weight. And so those are the technical changes, I believe. No, I've got about double DRS. I always forget about DRS. I always hope to forget about DRS in F1, but sadly my wish is not coming true. Yeah, the double DRS system developed by Mercedes has been banned, but the one that was developed by Lotus never raced, I believe. That's still allowed, so we might see some Lotus double DRS system clones come along. So let's talk about the sporting regulations, and again we're going to try and cut costs. No, that's not working. And there's going to be, well, force majeure has been eradicated from the scrutineering procedures or from the rule book, because it's a stupid term and no one really knew how to actually enforce the term properly, and it just caused chaos, such as when Red Bull with Sebastian Vettel, his car was short-fueled in Abu Dhabi and they tried to use force majeure, and Charlie Whiting was like, no, just go to the back of the grid. And they did, and Vettel even came third and got a podium out of that. So it didn't quite work. But other sporting regulations, well, sadly HRT have gone. So we only got 22 cars this year, and so in the first qualifying session, 6 drivers will be gone. If we got 6 teams, that's a bit extreme. I was thinking, but that might be interesting. You could only have 5 teams in the last half of the qualifying session. There you go, Bernie, there's a new idea. 6 teams gone in the first half of the qualifying, 5 teams gone in the second half, and I don't know, they could battle with gloves. No, okay, so yeah, there's going to be only 6 drivers gone in the first part of qualifying, and 6 drivers in the second part of qualifying. In the top 10 remains the same. And there's also been the drag reduction system. It's limited its use. It's no longer free to play in practice and qualifying. It is now restricted. It's now only allowed to be used in the DRS zones around the circuit for the whole weekend, and that's going to be 2 DRS zones everywhere apart from Monaco and Suzuka, where they're both going to be on the front straight. And so those are the sporting regs. So there's a bit about entry fees, but they've increased it to $500,000 to enter the sport or enter the season, and then it's per point you have to pay after that. And for Red Bull, they had to pay over $3 million just to enter this year, so quite a hefty fee to pay for success from the previous season. Well, it's not really that hefty compared to lower end teams who wish they could get all those points that Red Bull did last year. But that's enough about the regulations before I raffle on and board you. Let's talk about the teams and drivers, and of course we're going to start with the number 1 team from the past 3 seasons, Red Bull. So let's talk about Red Bull, the champions of the past 3 years, and drivers and constructors, with Sebastian Vettel becoming the youngest triple world champion in history and the first driver to win his first 3 titles in row, much like Red Bull, the first constructors to win the first 3 titles 3 years in a row. And so Red Bull is very much an evolutionary car, in the words of Adrian Newey, still the chief designer there. He's got a great team behind him. Christian Horner is still team principal. Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber are entering their 5th year of being drivers together. A very successful 5 years for Red Bull Racing, and for Sebastian Vettel in particular, the German. He's already up there in pole position wins, in wins as well. He's in the 20s. He's ahead of Hamilton, I believe, now, and he's going to be there challenging for the title again, it seems, as the Red Bull looks fast. There's not much changes to the car, a bit of a tighter package near the exhaust, a slight change of colour on the car. Not many people like that purple, but it's not that much different, come on. And Infinity all over the side pods, because it's now Infinity Red Bull Racing, announcing that partnership over the winter. And there's been a change on the front nose. That little box that we got used to seeing in 2012 is now underneath the car. There's a little dot underneath the nose. They concentrate on the airflow under the nose, underneath the car. They're trying to push it back to the diffuser and the body fast again. And Mark Webber has been criticised in the winter by Marco for being a bit inconsistent, which is kind of fair considering how last year turned out. Great in the first half, poor in the second, and just maybe because the changes to the car suit Vettel. But yeah, let's talk about this year. And again, it looks like it's going to be Vettel again challenging near the front, because that Red Bull looks a bit fast in testing, not many problems with the car as well, so it might be reliable again, despite the Renault alternators trying to deny that. And so yeah, just look for Red Bull being at the front again, challenge for both titles again, with all the big changes next year, where we don't know what's going to happen. But we don't really know what's going to happen this year from testing. But so let's talk about Ferrari now. So Ferrari, they finished second, snatching second from McLaren in the last few races of the season last year in the Constructors' title. We all know about Fernando Alonso coming second to Sebastian Vettel again by 3 points, and very narrow margin, just like in 2010. And so the aim for Ferrari to win that driver's title with Alonso, even though Constructors is always very good, it gives you a nice share of money from FOTA, I can't pronounce anything. But the Ferrari doesn't look much different here. Change of suspension, I think, a bit. The car actually goes around corners now. You don't have to fight the wheel, according to Massa. And it's like a very tidy car again. Long run pace, apparently the best, among the best in testing as well. And so look for Ferrari to actually start well this season. That is a good aim to do, as it might have cost them the title last year, where they were way behind in the flyaway races, and then up their game for the rest of the year with great development. And if they can develop well again, they will be challenging for the title again with Alonso again, who might be the 3rd time lucky for him, just like a certain Michael Schumacher got 3rd time lucky when he was challenging for titles in 97, 98. Unfortunately, he broke his leg in 99 when he was looking like he was going to win the title. But 2000, finally did it, and so we might see Fernando Alonso doing that. And Felipe Massa, you'll be counting on him this year. He's showed great confidence the second half of the season, and so he continues to do well under the leadership of Stefano Domenicali. If Luca de Montezemolo doesn't butt his head in again occasionally, and we've got Pat Fry there as well as one of the heads of the 3 departments they have over the car. And so yeah, we're going to be looking for Ferrari to do much better at the beginning of the year, and maybe continue that form on for the rest of the year. They're not known for their development really the past few years, last year an exception. So let's look for Ferrari to be up there challenging Red Bull. And another team we expect to be up there, McLaren. So let's talk about McLaren, and it could be a tough year for them, because On the technical side, Paddy Lowe, technical director of the head of their matrix system that they describe, he's left. He's taken the big bucks to go to Mercedes, so he's kind of on garden leave this year. I imagine he's doing the flowers in front of the McLaren Technology Centre in Woking for punishment for leaving. I imagine he's doing that now, and so they have Tim Goss there as the technical director now. He's been with the team for 1990s, he's out-designed a few of their cars in the past 10 years, and so it's not that much of a change, and so there's good continuity going forward. But the biggest change of all is coming on the driver front, with Lewis Hamilton going to Mercedes, and so you have Paddy Lowe and Lewis Hamilton from next year, being chums again. And so they brought in Sergio Perez, not the most popular choice. The guy's nicking at Nico Hulkenberg, Paul di Resta as well, but Perez, he showed his worth last year in the Salvo with almost winning Malaysia, until he kind of binned it where he went off the road when he was right up Alonso's exhaust there, and he got podiums in Canada and Monza as well, where he drove an impressive second off the race to go through the field to second. And so if he cuts out the mistakes he showed at the end of last year, if he can maybe provide support to Button. I know Martin Rickmarshall is banging the drum on the Inkle drivers front, but we all know Button will probably be the head of that team, with teaching Perez how to calm it down a bit, teaching Perez how to maybe drive and finish all the races, and that's what they'll be looking for from Perez, maybe getting the odd podium and maybe challenging for the win, not for the title like you said in your season, Perez. I don't think anyone's expecting that, not even you maybe. You were just being a bit boisterous when getting a bit excited during the off season, but we might expect Button to challenge with a team, with him being the head of the de facto head of the team there on the drivers front, with Martin Rickmarsh still there as principal. With the changes on the technical side, we might see maybe changes on development as well, and might actually develop the car during the year a bit better than last year, which really cost them when they had the best car at the beginning of the year last year, and then it kind of went down into the midfield, and then they built it up again after Button had set-up issues and mistakes with the new pit stop system last year, which were kinked out, and now they got the fastest pit stop in the pit lane consistently, and they did have reliability issues as well, with Lewis Hamilton time from the lead of the Singapore Grand Prix and Abu Dhabi as well. And so you can maybe expect McLaren to be a bit stronger. Maybe they've sorted out the kinks on their pit stop system, maybe short the kinks and the reliability as well, even though Button and Perez are downplaying the car during testing, saying it's not really where they want it to be. Even Alonso, who downplayed everything last year, he's setting the car 200% better this year, even though he's still downplaying it a bit after that. But yeah, maybe we can expect Button to be strong and maybe Perez to have an up and down year this year, and McLaren. So let's talk about Lotus next. What a year Lotus had last year, with Sir Kimi Räikkönen coming back after a couple of years in the World Rally Championship. He came third, almost challenged for the title at parts, a bit like Kubica in 2008 in the Salvo. And so Räikkönen very successful in his return. He completed loads of laps, so he all but won in Brazil when he got a bit lost in the end, and he had 19 out of 20 races in the points, and so he's a very reliable first driver. But Roman Grosjean, on the other hand, he kind of struggled a bit. I think we can say 9 first lap incidents, and he did have kind of strong races as well, such as in Bahrain where he got a podium, in Spain as well he was right behind Räikkönen, and so he did have the few races where he was very strong. Britain as well behind Räikkönen, America right behind Räikkönen at the end after a bit of a spin in the early laps, and so he does have the pace. He's been seeing a sports psychologist on the off season, and of course he won the Race of Champions in Bangkok as well. Might give him a bit of confidence as well, and he might realise there are other cars on the first corner on the first lap, but you can be a bit patient as well, and so he might calm it down this year, and I think he will show his true pace this year, and backing up Räikkönen very well. And what looks to be a fast and maybe fragile Lotus have been having issues in testing with reliability, but they've been shown that they've got a fast car there. Maybe got a fast car there. Of course, you've got Eric Bourrier as the team principal, and I think you've got James Allison as the chief designer there. And so you expect a very strong car there with a bit more red on it. Well, on the side pods, they've kind of moved it from the rear wing to the side pods, and so it looks nice, and it's one of the few step nose cars. So maybe we could see development of them putting on the vanity panel if they find the wind tunnel numbers are very good as well, or such as when McLaren had the very nice nose, and then they had to kind of put a bit of a step in it to make it a bit faster as they realised. And so you might see that with the Lotus again against the trend, and maybe you have to put the vanity panel on, even though you can do it because of weight. It's mere pounds. It's not too much. It's all about what they see in the wind tunnel, and so maybe you can expect the Lotus to be really challenging there this season, continue this upward trend since Bourrier's taken over in 2010 when they had Kubica and Petrov, and then you had 2011 with the whatever was going on in the driver's front with Senna, with Heidfeld, with unfortunately Kubica who got injured, but last year a great turn in form there, and hopefully it will continue again for Lotus for all the big changes next year. And so let's talk about the team that finished fifth, one of the big disappointments of last year, Mercedes. Mercedes, what were you doing last year? You won in China, dominated China with Rosberg, got a podium in Valencia with Schumacher, and then nothing else for the rest of the year. I think the best was the top 5 for Rosberg in Singapore. That was it. A nice 7th place for Schumacher in his last race in F1 as well. So, lot to improve on for Mercedes this year, but we all know what they're doing. They're concentrating on 2014, and that's why a certain Lewis Hamilton has joined the team along with Big Bucks, a brand name, and he might get distracted off track as well. We've got to look at that situation, but his driving, he was superb last year, one of his best seasons in F1, and if he continues that this season with a new challenge, he might be a bit reinvigorated as well, alongside his karting teammate from years ago and his friend Nico Rosberg. So you got maybe one of the strongest lineups on the grid with those two, and you got Paddy Lowe coming in next year as well. So you're really building a team for Hamilton there. There are also changes in the background as well. Unfortunately, Norbert Kauer has retired as the head of Mercedes Motorsport. I believe that was his title at the end of last season, kind of ushering the end of the Schumacher era with the team there, with Schumacher retiring as well. But you still got Nico Rosberg there, who's been there since 2010, and so he's got a good rapport with that team, and he could maybe show Hamilton the way a couple of times. He could maybe be close to Hamilton a couple of times, but I believe that Hamilton will be faster than Rosberg over the whole season, or score more points than Rosberg over the whole season. But there's been two major problems for Mercedes. There's the ban of double DRS, of course, that system they had, which didn't really give them much in the end as well. They struggled with aero development, as I think Ross Brawn highlighted over the winter, and there's question marks about Ross Brawn. There's loads of question marks about this team. There's question marks about Ross Brawn being team principal after this year with Paddy Lowe coming in. There's been, as I said, Norbert Hauer's gone. You've got Tito Wolff coming in, and you've got Nicky Lauda coming in as a non-executive chairman. I don't know what that is. I think he just sits there or promotes Mercedes. Seems like Tito Wolff is the one doing all of the work there, and so you also have this strange structure in the background of the team. This might have contributed to the lack of development of the season, because you have 3 technical heads going into 2 positions, and you got Paddy Lowe again, another technical head. They're building a technical super team. They're building the Avengers F1 style, it seems. And so we've got Jeff Willis as technology director, you've got Bob Bell as technical director, you've got Aldo Costa as engineering director, I believe. Paddy Lowe, who's going to be a engineering technological director, I guess. You got so many heads there that it could just be butting on the ways to develop the car, and so that might be a problem there. And so Mercedes, if they can get over these issues of tyre wear which they've been having, and it's like short run pace very fast. They did have the fastest lap overall testing in Barcelona with Rosberg, I believe, and so we could see Mercedes being up there in qualifying, but not so sure about it in the race. Doesn't seem they've got sorted out the main issues of these tyre wears here, and so or getting good pace over long runs. But again, I'm referencing testing, and again that's a bit irrelevant over the season. But I do think Hamilton will do well. I do think you get podiums, maybe a win, maybe a sneaker win. But it's going to be a tough year for Mercedes, I believe. It might even be tougher next year, even though they're all concentrating for next year, you know, with all these changes. It's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a tough year for Ross Brawn. He's going to be on the hot seat whole year, it seems. He might be ushered out there at the end of the year, we just don't know. But that's enough about Mercedes, who I think might again have a difficult year. Let's talk about who was sixth last year, and that happened to be Salvo. And so we go to Mercedes' former partner when Salvo entered the sport in 20 years ago, but now they're with Ferrari, and now they have an all new driver. Line up for this year, gone up Perez to McLaren, and gone is Kobayashi to Ferrari, actually in the World Endurance Championship in their GT program there. And so they have Nico Hülkenberg and Esteban Gutierrez with the relatively new team principal Mauricia Colton Bourne. I apologise if I said that wrong. He took over from Peter Salvo midway through last season, I believe, when Salvo decided to retire, but he is still a part of the board there at Salvo. And so it's a new beginning for Salvo, kind of. And they do have Gutierrez with the Talmax money, I apologise, from Carlos Slim there in Mexico, and it's been in GP2 kind of up and down years the past 2 years, and so I'm not really expecting much from him. I'm really on the fence about him, and I don't think he will help Salvo try and move up ahead of Mercedes like they were kind of targeting at the end of last season. I don't think they will move ahead of Mercedes because of that. I think he will have a bit of a Sergio Perez at the end of last season where he makes quite a few mistakes, but he will occasionally maybe show some pace as well. But I'm looking at Hülkenberg to really bring the bacon for Salvo here, and the Salvo looking very nice. They've got a new colour scheme, a bit dark, a bit like HRT or Hispania in 2010, but maybe it could have been bright blue. I don't know. I just like the colour blue, is my favourite, so maybe if you made it a bit bright blue, bring some colour to the grid. No, but honestly I think it's one of the best looking cars on the grid, and I think Hülkenberg will maybe get some podiums with that car. It looks very strong in testing, again testing the relevant marker, I know, but it looks very good, and it's not having too many issues on reliability either, where they have very narrow sideboards now, a very interesting route they're going for. It helps with the airflow, I think, to the back of the car. It seems, of course it would, or else they wouldn't have gone with it, but it looks very good, and looks like they haven't had too many reliability issues in testing from the cooling there, which could have been a major concern. And they went to that narrow sideboard route because in 2011, after Sergio Perez had his horrific crash in Monaco, they looked at his car and thought, oh, we could make these narrow actually, and they looked at his car and was like, yeah, that might work actually, and so they've done it for this year, and so it looks like it's going to work out for Salvo. I don't think they will challenge Mercedes for 4th or 5th even. I don't think Mercedes will challenge for 4th, so I don't think they will challenge for 5th, but I think they could be again head of the midfield there. And talk about other midfield runners, let's talk about Force India first. Force India, as you can see, as you've gone into midfield, it got a bit darker, so I had to brighten the place up. But Force India, they look the same. I don't think there's much changes they've done to the car. They've got the old vanity panel there. They've taken a bit from Ferrari, I think, and well, it just looks the same. It's got the Resta there. They've got Sitil there from 2011. The old partnership back together, and would have liked to see Bianchi there, but can't get all we wish for. And so in this like a solid year for Force India, the car looks solid in testing. It just looks solid everywhere. It's very solid. It's a solid car, and it's like a solid pairing, and it's very solid for the midfield team. It looks like going to be solidity in the midfield, and so I think Force India will be very solid this year. And the rest, it could be his make or break year. I know last year could have been his make or break year going to McLaren maybe, but this year could be his make or break just to keep his seat at Force India. It seems he hasn't really shown much in the previous 2 years. He kind of tailed off towards the end of the year, whereas teammates have gone a bit better towards the end of the years, including Sutil in 2011, and so he could maybe face some trouble with Sutil, not in a bar, I mean on the track, and so maybe that could be a very close pairing, even though I think Durster will do a bit better in the end. And Sutil, after a year away where he's basically been trying to make himself independent, it seems, and he's been hanging out in the paddock a bit. I remember seeing him in Monza, I think he was at, so that's a strong track for Sutil. Maybe he could do well there. But Sutil, he's been away for a year. We don't really know about him. We don't really know about how fast he is now in testing. He looked quite good for a guy who's been away for a year, who hasn't driven a racing car for a year. He's probably driven a car around, but not a racing car. But yeah, that's Force India. They look very, very solid, and it's like the financial state is a bit solider as well, even though there's been trouble with Vijay Managa and his companies, and there's been trouble with Sahara as well. He's their big investment from the last season, but it looks like they are powering through, and it looks like they're very, very solid. And despite the rumours of them maybe shutting down in the winter as well, crazy rumours there. So yeah, they look very solid. I think Force India will be very solid this year, solidly 7th maybe. So that's Force India. Let's look at Williams. Well, they won a race last year. They returned to the top of the podiums for the first time since the 2004 Brazilian Grand Prix with Juan Pablo Montoya, another fiery South American in Pastor Maldonado, got that win. First one for Venezuelan in Formula 1 as well at the Spanish Grand Prix in Catalonia, and he looked okay in Catalonia again in testing, and the car looks generally very good. They kind of still got that tight rear end. They kind of made it even tighter, so now it's supermodel standard tight rear end there, and the car has got fat nose like Ferrari, and it looks like a very strong car, and it looks like Maldonado leading the team. But last time he led the team, he won a title. He won the GP2 title in 2010, and so maybe you can look for Maldonado to surprise again. He did do it in qualifying, had very strong qualifyings all over the place in Belgium, Valencia, Britain, Abu Dhabi, Singapore on the front row of course, and of course in Spain where he got pole and inherited pole, or was given pole, he had pole, and so you can expect to see Maldonado do strongly, I believe, this year. I think he showed signs of maturity towards the end of the year as well, and so they have lost in the background staff. They have lost Tito Wolff, who seemed to be taking up the slack when Adam Parr got sacked last year, and he looks like he was very good for the team, and unfortunately he's gone now. And you got Sir Frank Reams, who has unfortunately lost his wife recently. My thoughts go out to his family there, and it looks like a team that is very much looking towards the future. They've still got Mike Coughlin there as well as technical director. They've lost Mark Gillen in the off season, and so that might affect them as well, but I think they've always believed Gillen was a short term thing. That's what I've read anyway, from unknown websites. So that's what I expect from Williams. I do expect them to be very strong. I do expect Terry Bottas, who they rate very highly, gave him 15 free practice sessions last year in place of Bruno Senna, and Senna got a bit angry. And Senna is now out of that seat. He just looked like he was warming the seat for Bottas, frankly. And Bottas, highly rated, won the GP3 championship in 2011, and we can expect lots from him. He looks very fast. Of course, we got the Bottas hashtag as well, and so he's very popular, and he looks like he's going to be a very good driver as well for that team. He might push Maldonado at times. I don't think he will get ahead of Maldonado. I think Maldonado looks very good this year, but I think Bottas will be very good rookie as well, be up there in the best of the rookie title there. So that is Williams, and looking a very smart car, and looks like a smart team going forward. And so let's go to a team that's not so smart, Toro Rosso. Okay, I'm being a bit unfair on Toro Rosso. They have made some good changes over the off-season, it seems. They brought in James Key to replace Giorgio Ascanelli, who was the designer for a few years, done some very smart cars for Toro Rosso, but there was nothing to develop. They had no money to develop those cars, and so they didn't really fulfill their potentials in the previous year. And then Ascanelli kind of fell out with Frank Tost, and he was given the Tost last year season. And then James Key has come in this year, and I expect that car to be a bit better than last season, maybe a bit of a better indicator for those two drivers, Daniel Ricciardo and John-Eric Vergne, who we still don't really know how good they were last season because the car was all over the place. And so they also have Steve Nelson from Catrin joining as sporting director, and so they've got a new all sporting technical partnership there, and so maybe that will help Toro Rosso with this new partnership. And of course Ricciardo and Vergne, they might be fighting for that Red Bull seat for 2014, they might even be fighting for the seats for this season to finish the season, because Antonio Felix da Costa, the young hotshot in Formula Renault 3.5, if he does really well this season like he ended last season, he won bloody everything when he joined the Red Bull program. He almost won the GP3 title, almost won the Formula Renault 3.5 title, despite joining halfway through the season. He won Macau as well. So Da Costa was very strong at last season, so they might be looking over their shoulders again. These Toro Rosso drivers looking over their shoulders at a young Red Bull driver, never seen that before. But yeah, they might be in the hot seat, those two, depending on who's doing worst in the first half of the season. So they might have to really perform, like Alguersuari had to pick up his game in 2011 from Valencia onwards, because he was on the verge of getting beaten out that seat by Daniel Ricciardo, who ended up at HRT instead. And so I don't expect Toro Rosso to step forward. I don't expect that until next year, where they maybe change Renault suppliers or engine suppliers to Renault to link up with the Red Bull team, and so that might help them next season. But this season it's just going to be a bedding in season for the new technical partnership there, or technical sporting partnership there. Of course, Frank Tost, team principal, he's just going to lead like a Tost. And yeah, that's Toro Rosso. I don't think we'll learn any more about Ricciardo and Vergne. Might learn that they're a bit better than we thought, which I don't think anybody really rated them last season. I don't think we might rate them a lot this season either, because that car might be all over the place again. It might just be at the end of the midfield. It doesn't look like really made a step forwards, much like the next team, Catrin. I haven't shuffled these in a while. Yeah, so now we're at the newer teams, and that means I had to shuffle my papers. And now we're talking about Catrin. He snatched 10th place from Marussia in the last race of the season when Charles picked their new driver. Got overtaken by Petrov, their old driver, for 10th place in Brazil. Got DRS runner getting that by the Ferraris. And so Catrin got that all important 10th place and some extra dollars or money from Mr. Bernie. And so Catrin, what can we expect from them this year? We cannot expect a good looking car. What have you done to the colour? What is that green? Where is the yellow? And the car doesn't look like it's made any step forwards. They've had reliability issues in testing, and Van der Garde, he looks like a decent bloke, very friendly on Twitter, very friendly to the media. And Pick looks like Pick, very quiet and does his job and looks like unassuming, just like Nick Heidfeld was. We just knew he was there, didn't really expect much. And looks like the same for Pick. And looks like a year where Catrin are just going to be stuck in the middle of nowhere. But I say middle of nowhere. They could be fighting with a certain Marussia team behind them, and of course Catrin are under new team principal still. Cyril Abatadun. I apologise, I said that wrong. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. The former Renault employee who's the team principal. They're taking over from Tony Fernandez, who's a bit distracted by QPR. And so his new leadership, a young leader, he's only 35. I think he's the new youngest team principal on the grid, taking over from his fellow Frenchman Eric Boyer there. And so we can maybe expect Catrin to have a better leadership, better development, maybe better than last year, but they were very disappointing and they didn't really develop as well as I think they expected, or anybody really expected, when they were getting towards the edge of Toro Rosso, kind of slipping down, and they're kind of moving up towards them, and then Toro Rosso kind of moved forward a bit, and then Catrin moved down, then moved down towards Marussia, and then they were kind of level with Marussia, and so it's going to be another interesting battle for 10th place. It's going to be probably the best battle on the grid for 10th place with Marussia. And so we're now at the back of the grid, where with Marussia, who came unfortunately 11th place last season. They were my team of the year. They really performed well against Catrin, despite having no curves, but finances as well on that side, and despite having a car that kind of broke down occasionally, annoyingly, and they really, I think, probably could have got 10th place, but in the end, Catrin just beat them to it. But this year, it could be all changed with an all-new livery. Well, there's more white in it, and it looks very nice again. You can't really go wrong with red, black, and white, really. I don't think you can. I could try. If a F1 teams wanted me to design their livery, I could try and mess that up, but no. Okay, so Marussia, all signs are promising. They got this technical partnership with McLaren. They got Pat Simmons full time now. He's a consultant while he's nicking out his ban, and it looks like he's going to be a big technical director there, or technical head for the team, and could really help them move forward. Of course, he's won titles with Benetton on Renault, and so he's a very experienced campaigner in the sport, and very good acquisition, great acquisition for this team. And of course, he's still got John Booth as team principal. We've got Graham Loudon there as a senior head of operations or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's a manager or something. And so they have the newest rookie partnership. They have a rookie partnership. Well, I say newest partnership, of course, because Bianchi came in midway through the last test, replacing newest Razzia. Unfortunately, his sponsor in Brazil let him down, and so Razzia had his contract terminated, and Bianchi, who missed out on forced injury, management was very quick on pouncing on this possible seat here, and it looks like he beat out Kovalainen, I believe, was in the running, and so Jules Bianchi is now a Marussia driver, and maybe that could set them up for an engine deal next year, with Cosworth not really expected to continue beyond this year, and so maybe they could get a Ferrari engine deal. Marussia Ferrari has a certain ring to it, and so they have Max Chilton there as well. He's done loads of testing, probably knows that car better than his house, and so I really do expect Bianchi to be better than Chilton, but I do expect Chilton to maybe push Bianchi a bit more like he maybe did in GP2 in 2011. Maybe push him a bit more than he did in that season. But I do think it's an exciting pairing for Marussia, and of course they've got the McLaren technical partnership as well, which I think has kicked into effect. I'm not really sure, but lets them use the simulator there, and what better simulator is there? There's very solid simulator for them to work with, and very solid going forward, it seems, especially with curves. They're going to be learning about curves this year. It's going to give them up to half a second per lap, I believe, or quarter of a second per lap, and so as they understand curves, maybe get rid of some of the gremlins there, and they could really challenge Catrin this year. I tell you, that fight for 10th is going to be the best fight on the grid, and I believe with this all-rookie pairing, the first all-rookie pairing since Shadow in 1979, so for 34 years, I believe it looks really good for the future for fruition, it's good for them now as well. And so that's all the teams covered. A mammoth preview of this season. I didn't expect it to be this long, I'll be honest, but I hope you do enjoy this preview, and I hope you do enjoy the Australian Grand Prix this weekend. And I did say I was going to make some predictions, so if you haven't watched Around the Corner on Handsome 101 HD's channel, link in the description below, I did make a couple of bold predictions. I predicted that Grosjean would be the best second driver out the top 5 teams. I predicted Hulkenberg would win a race. Don't look at me funny. I do think that those could be possibilities, but I do have a couple of other predictions. I do predict that Catrin will kind of just hang on to 10th place in the championship. I predict Salvo to be 6th in the constructors as well to win that midfield battle. I do predict Lewis Hamilton to maybe win a race here. I don't think he could win a race in that Mercedes, and I predict Alonso to win the title and Red Bull to win the constructors, because I think Red Bull will still develop that car like nobody else and still be the best in development, but I do think Ferrari could match them this year like they did in the second half of last season. So I do think if Ferrari do have a stronger car in the beginning of the season, I do think Alonso will win the title. And so those are my predictions. Let me know what you think in the comments below, of course, and thank you for watching Power Oversteer, the F1 2013 season preview episode. So I'm out for watching, so till next time, cheerio. Hello. Lights. Guess I'm sleeping here tonight.